sun hangs golden and heavy over the sleek, modern athletic academy. On the track, Hyacinthus moves like a force of nature, lean, powerful, and unyielding. But unseen by the other athletes, something more stirs beneath the surface of this place. A god walks among them. They say gods should never meddle in mortal affairs, but Apollo, god of the sun, music, and prophecy, had never been one to follow rules. And then he saw Hyacinthus. From the sidelines, Apollo watches. The sunlight clings to him as if drawn by his very essence. His golden hair gleams, his presence radiant and commanding. Yet beneath the beauty lies something deeper, a longing no divine power could quell. Hyacinthus was no ordinary mortal, and Apollo, weary of the cold vastness of immortality, found himself drawn to the warmth of a human heart. Hyacinthus crosses the finish line, breathless and triumphant. In the crowd's roar, one gaze pierces through it all. When their eyes meet, the air seems to hum with something unspeakable. The gods can touch anything but love without consequence, and Apollo, despite all his wisdom, was no exception. Night falls over the academy. In the shadowed quiet of the gym, only two figures remain. Hyacinthus trains with fierce determination. Apollo lingers nearby, his presence an unspoken promise. What draws a god to a mortal? Was it the fire in Hyacinthus' spirit, or the way he defied even the divine with his brilliance? Apollo steps closer, his touch guiding Hyacinthus' shoulders with deliberate care. For a moment, nothing exists beyond the heat of his hands. Perhaps it was inevitable, the collision of their worlds. But desire is a dangerous thing, even for a god. The air grows heavy, thick with the weight of something neither dares to speak aloud. And still, Apollo lingers. Yet love, no matter how bright, casts a shadow. And from that shadow, another watches. Zephyrus, the west wind whose heart once yearned for Hyacinthus. But envy turns even the softest breeze into a storm. Once Zephyrus had loved without fear, but love, unreturned, festers. And to him, Hyacinthus was more than a mortal. He was a prize no god could surrender. When Hyacinthus lingers alone, Zephyrus appears, his words sliding like silk over thorns. Envy is a quiet poison, and Zephyrus in his jealousy would do anything to turn Hyacinthus away from Apollo. The wind brushes against Hyacinthus' skin, carrying whispers meant to wound. On the rooftop, beneath a canopy of stars, Hyacinthus stands alone, but not for long. Apollo finds him, the warmth of his presence chasing away the night chill. Even gods are not immune to longing, and Apollo, for all his power, had never wanted anything as fiercely as he wanted this mortal boy. A step closer, a touch lingering too long, and then the question that hangs between them like lightning in the air. And when their lips met, the world seemed to tremble, for in that kiss, they were no longer god and mortal, just two souls bound by something neither could control. But love so bright cannot escape the notice of jealous eyes, and as they fall deeper, the winds begin to stir, a warning of the storm to come. Days pass in a golden blur. Apollo becomes more than a coach. He is a constant presence, a warmth Hyacinthus never knew he needed. But in the shadow of love, jealousy festers still. In the quiet hours, they dreamed of forever. Apollo, immortal, untouchable, dared to imagine a world where a god and a mortal could walk side by side. Under the stars, Apollo brushes a strand of hair from Hyacinthus' face. The air between them crackles with a promise too fragile for the god's cruel world. But love is never so simple, and in the heavens, envy stirred, an unseen force that would tear them apart. Far away, Zephyrus watches. His heart, twisted by rejection, hungers for retribution, and where the wind moves, disaster follows. A bright afternoon. The sound of laughter echoes as Apollo and Hyacinthus play with a discus, their bond stronger than ever. But the wind, unseen and bitter, begins to shift. If only love alone could protect them. But the gods are not so kind. Apollo throws the discus, his strength effortless and godlike. Hyacinthus races after it, unaware that a jealous wind coils through the air, waiting to strike. And in that moment, when joy met jealousy, the winds turned cruel. A god's love, no matter how bright, could not shield against a rival's wrath. The discus curves unnatural, violent, driven by Zephyrus' fury. Hyacinthus reaches for it, and fate shatters in a heartbeat. A single act of envy, and the heavens would never be the same again. The world slows as the discus falls. Blood stains the grass, vivid and unforgiving. Hyacinthus lies still, the light in his eyes fading as Apollo kneels beside him, hands trembling with the power he cannot wield to undo what has been done. Love cannot always save us. Even for a god, some wounds lie beyond healing. Apollo cradles Hyacinthus in his arms, his radiant face shadowed by anguish. A golden tear falls, gleaming against mortal skin, but it is not enough to pull Hyacinthus back from the brink. Apollo, god of the sun, who could bend light to his will, found himself powerless against the cruelty of fate. The wind shifts softly, no longer violent but mourning. Zephyrus lingers unseen, the weight of his jealousy curdling into regret. But it is too late. What is broken cannot be undone. Days blur into nights. The world moves on, but Apollo cannot. In the sanctuary of the Academy Gardens, he stands alone, the memory of Hyacinthus etched into every stone and petal. A god is not meant to love, but Apollo had loved, deeply, recklessly, and now that love had become a wound no time could heal. At his feet, where Hyacinthus fell, something stirs. A delicate blossom, blood-red and soft as silk, pushes through the earth. Yet love, even in its sorrow, leaves traces. And from the place where he fell, Apollo gave Hyacinthus a new life, a flower to bloom forever in his name. Apollo brushes his fingers over the petals, the wind whispering what cannot be spoken aloud. A promise that neither gods nor time could sever. Far from the Academy, Zephyrus lingers where the wind is strongest, his heart heavy with the weight of what he has done. But guilt is no cure for broken hearts. Jealousy is a poison. It can twist love into hate, and even a god cannot escape the consequences of their envy. Zephyrus watches the petals of the hyacinth flower drift in the breeze, haunted by the beauty of what he destroyed. But the wind cannot carry apologies, only echoes of what was lost. He had wanted Hyacinthus to love him. Instead, he ensured no one else ever would. At sunset, Apollo stands on the rooftop where he first kissed Hyacinthus. The city sprawls beneath him, buzzing with life, but his heart is heavy with absence. Yet even grief cannot eclipse love. In the quiet hours, Apollo still felt him, like warmth lingering long after the sun had set. A breeze stirs his hair, and Apollo closes his eyes. If he listens closely, he can almost hear Hyacinthus' laughter on the wind. Perhaps the gods are doomed to sorrow, but Apollo would carry the memory of Hyacinthus for all eternity. As night falls, the hyacinth flower blooms beneath the stars, an eternal reminder that love, once given, never truly dies. Time passes, but the flower remains. Mortals tell stories of a love so fierce it defied even the gods' cruelty. Some say that every spring, the hyacinths bloom. Apollo walks among them, still seeking the boy who stole his heart. The camera lingers on the flower, swaying